Hello, everyone. Welcome to 360ed.tv. My name is Chooks, and I'll be your show host for today. With me in the house today is Katrina Macdermid, who is actually reading a really interesting book on humanizing IT. I'd like her to introduce herself. Well, before we begin, welcome, Katrina.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here.
I want to get a little bit of your background. I know you've worked in IT service management. Can you tell us a little about the work you do and what excites you, particularly maybe share a little bit about your book?
Absolutely. So I've been working in IT for decades, a long, long time. And I started life in IT operations, and I was very content with my job. Like most IT professionals, I attained certifications in various frameworks. And then I sort of come to a realization one day that something was missing, and that something was called the human experience. And that spurred me to write a book, as you said, called Humanizing IT.
Great. So now that's a great way to start this interview. Let's get a sense of what sparked the need to focus on humanizing IT. I get a sense of what that is, but just for the audience who's going to be watching, why is that important to you?
Absolutely. I like to say, I have the opportunity to speak at conferences around the globe, and I like to say, like many IT professionals, I studied a framework called ITEL. I'm actually an ITIL master, which is the highest certification you can attain back in the day. Yeah, thank you. And respectfully, what I found when I was studying, I had to read a lot of books, in fact, over 5,000 pages. And in all of those books, there was not one picture of a human.
Oh.
And that was kind of what was a pivotal moment for me. I realized that we in IT are taught how to do processes and procedures and inputs and outputs, but we're never taught about actually who's using the service that we're providing and who's using the service. So humans, and we're all different with different needs.
All right, I'm going to piggyback on that, looking at the user experience. Now, how do you approach humanizing IT when taking into consideration the need for a positive experience for the human? And if you could touch on what that means for employees in an organization, relating with clients in real life.
Well, you hit the nail on the head, because I don't know if you noticed it. You said for the user. And what frameworks in IT, ITIL, for example, will say when the user contacts the service desk, meaning who is the user? And we create experiences that are the same. So regardless if that user is outside, if that user is a doctor, if that user is someone at an airport or someone sitting at a desk, they have a different need and a different way that they can contact IT. So for example, a nurse that's looking after a patient is a different experience from someone sitting at a desk in an office. And so what Humanizing IT does is asks IT professionals to think about the users that they're, as I said, here to serve, and then create the processes and procedures around that. Because traditionally, we like to say in my book is that one size does not fit all. Yeah. And we have to create different experiences for different users. And so by doing that, we give employees a better experience. But what we really advocate is important for user experience, but it's also important for the IT professional experience. Because we don't like listening to complaints and frustrations. And usually it's because we've given them a bad experience. Yeah. Unintentionally. So as I said, Humanizing IT educates IT professionals to think about principles of design thinking, which is personas, empathy, where they are, as I said, what they're doing before an incident has occurred, during or after.
We're going to touch on empathy much later, but I'm curious to know or learn about, or if you can give some examples of initiatives where you've actually bridged the communication gap between IT teams and the end user, like we're discussing, and looking at fostering more human connection in service delivery.
Certainly. Example I like to give is in IT when we write a process, such I'll give a simple example, a user's computer has broken or old-fashioned, they can't print. Something's happened, something's broken. So we in IT will write a process that the user logs a ticket, and then we write about what we do. So we will categorize the ticket, we prioritize the ticket, we update the ticket, we might escalate the ticket. in all of that process, we have never spoken about what the user's doing. And so what Humanizing IT does, it brings the business and IT together to create and co-design processes and procedures in IT.
Well, that's quite interesting.
Yes, because it's always one-sided. It's always about us.
Yeah, that's actually really, I get it now. I get it. I'm getting it. Think about the human first, design for the human, with the human. Yeah, I get
Did you
that.
read the book before this interview?
I haven't read the book. I'm going to confess, I haven't read the book, but I think I can get the story. Now, let's touch on the empathy bit, because you talked about it earlier. Now, can you discuss a strategy or some strategies for incorporating empathy in the IT service management process?
Absolutely. So there's a saying we have in IT, I'm not sure if you've heard of it, called picnic.
Picnic? No.
No, it's problem in chair, not in computer.
Problem in chair, not in computer.
So typically in IT, we tend to say the users are dumb. We're written knowledge adequate, or it's simple to use.
We think that was simple to
Correct.
use.
So we don't empathize with the user experience.
Yeah.
And again, we will write knowledge articles that make sense to us, but it doesn't make sense to users.
Yeah.
So by bringing empathy into the processes design of IT service management makes an amazing difference. And as I said, part of our framework and approach is we invite people from the business, and we also invite 10-year-olds.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
Children that don't work in the industry. So they bring in a very different perspective. And that's really elements of human-centered design.
Yeah. So that's that rigorous testing, not just testing with the IT team, but testing with the actual humans who are going to be using that. So that's very pivotal. I was just wondering, in terms of knowing the need for that rigorous testing, would you say you need to tweak the language every now and then to suit the human? Or would you try to find like a bridge between, because for IT, they've got specific language. Now for the user, they might want to call it something else. What's involved in that process?
Yeah. And it's interesting you say that, because frameworks like ITEL pride themselves of it creates a common language that everybody understands. It creates a common language that IT people understand.
I know that because I'm just thinking about it.
Exactly. And, again, we pride ourselves that this is an incident and this is a problem and that's a service request. User doesn't know.
The difference between an incident and a problem.
Very good.
I remember that.
And they don't know. But I will caveat this, that we still need governance and compliance. So we still need that procedures. But I will also say, if you create a poor process or poorly designed experience process, people will not follow it. So you've got to have compliance issues.
Yes, this is true.
So what we do, as you said, it's very important that these processes have compliance, but also consider experience as well.
Okay. Now, just before we wrap up, I would like to get a sense of how you prioritize user experience and satisfaction when making decisions related to IT service design and its implementation.
Yes, great question, because I also like to say, not all experiences need to be great.
Okay, we're going to pause on that. Not all experiences need to be great. Why is that? Why do you say that?
So when was the last time you traveled on an airplane?
Oh, like yesterday.
Okay. And what did you fly, business first or economy?
Business.
Oh.
I'm going to say true.
Okay. But you paid for that experience, didn't you?
Yes. Yeah.
Now, if you paid for economy, you're going to get a different experience, aren't you?
Definitely.
And you know that.
Yeah.
So my point is, the business doesn't necessarily give IT budget to have a business class experience.
Got it.
So sometimes good is good enough.
Okay.
And this is what, again, we teach IT professionals. Don't strive to be great because you don't have the funds or the resources. Strive to be what the business is paying for. And if they're only paying for good service, unfortunately, economy is good enough.
It's good enough. Now I feel like I need to practice empathy, because half of the times you get off a phone with the IT department and you feel like you're about to swear at them.
Yes.
But with what you said, I get an understanding that they're coming from a place of this is what the business can afford. So good, like you said, good enough is good enough.
Yeah.
All right. I'd like to say a big thank you to Katrina Macdermid for being with us today and sharing your wonderful insights. Anyone do you want to do a quick plug of your book and where people can find the book?
Certainly. My book is called Humanizing IT, Human-Centered Design for IT Service Management. It's available on Amazon or from my publishers TSO. And if I may, we also do an award-winning online training course that's based on the book. That our passion is that all IT professionals will do our course.
Excellent. It was really lovely to have you on board today. And thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you.